Well, good afternoon, Mr. Hanson. I guess the reason I asked to do it this way is because it also gives me practice on some of my other classes I'm taking as far as through UND and my other major, which is communications and marketing strategies. Um, but let's get started. Due to, or not due to, according to the assignment that you posted, I guess I just got some bullet points and some stuff saved on my computer that I'm going to share and give you a thorough explanation, answering the questions as follows. And I might ramble a little bit, but here we go. But the topic I picked was trauma. And to start out, the reason I picked trauma is because I personally am a victim of trauma as a child with parents that were addicts, a lot of domestic violence, anything that a child shouldn't see, I saw myself. So I guess that kind of helps me be an educator, especially in a poverty-related environment like the reservation. It gives me a little fulfillment, and I teach them to help cope with these things in a certain way, and give them examples like myself, as well as many others, that people that I've met over time that have suffered any type of trauma in their life that's affecting their ability to learn or even just function on the day to day. And we all know it takes time. And I know you, as your explanations you've actually talked about in the training that we had when you were leading it last winter. So, but trauma alone can be defined as a deeply depressing or disturbing experience. But overall, when it comes to children and students and stuff like that, it's a little more than that as far as a explanation goes. I mean, according to Child Mind Institute, which is childmind.org, which is a very good, reliable resource, trauma is a result of frightening and upsetting events, which can be led to developmental issues, from it. And a lot of these issues and things that they're exposed to would be, abuse, neglect, homelessness, domestic violence, drug abuse, anything, you name it, because it's going to be emotional, psychological, and physical abuse that what happens to the child. So, in order to be able to fix these things, as educators, we've got to be able to do a little better job on our part too, and be able to understand it and acknowledge these things. As me as an educator at Four Winds High School, I've come across multiple scenarios where I've had one student kill themselves, and I felt terrible because I was unaware, and she was a student that didn't engage with me well. She was smiling, she was happy and stuff like that, but just like, I use a comparison to, like, Robin Williams and some of the, people that were in society that are funny and stuff, but they use certain things to shadow their, true feelings and how they're actually feeling as far as suffering from depression or whatever happens. But a lot of things that contributed to it would be like the stuff I talked about, which would be, homelessness and substance abuse, like a lot of the things that we already talked about in this video. Signs in school, I've had, students in my experience, and even, according to the same site, kids that, tend to veer off on their own or less able to engage with other students and stuff they're resistant and they pull back. And then there's some that you can tell that'll act up, or, there's going to be a certain type of trigger, a certain type of things that'll cause these things. Even me as a male model, as far as an instructor and a teacher, there might be some male or female students that won't, take to me if they had, even a 6'2" white complected guy like myself. If they have something like that happen within their home or in any type of experience, they're gonna stay away from it, I guess, and not engage as much and stuff like that. But to be able to get over that, it takes a lot of work from the instructors, from the administration, and as well as the school counselors and stuff like that. In my cases, I've always turned students over to our school counselors or whatnot, and try to give them the best possible help that they want. And if there's students that are not engaged and stuff like that, I try to get to know them a little more, try to get them to open up. And then if they show type of resistance or show type of things, then, or if it's a severe case, then of course you're going to have to bring in some more professional help. But I feel as an instructor that we have a job, a civil duty to our students to establish this kind of grounding with them, I guess, Some statistics for you for school-age children. According to effectivehealth.gov, traumatic events in childhood happen to more than 1,400 students a year or children, anywhere from the ages from 9 to 16 years old. 68% of these students have at least one extreme traumatic thing happen to them, which, in the case could be rape, which could be anything that's going to, affect them overall psychologically. It's really going to, get to them. And then some more statistics that I found too. 37% of those students, there's always more than one that happens to as well. And 13.4% of these traumas have post-traumatic symptoms. So, sometimes it depends on the individual, how you can handle things and stuff like that. But the unfortunate part, nobody should be able to handle the stuff like this. It's overwhelming, and it takes a lot of time to get over these things. And I get that, and that's why I picked this topic, because I can relate to it. And it's just really in depth. And we've been doing teacher trainings and stuff like that at the high school, and doing suicide prevention seminars and everything like that, and just trying to get to these kids. And actually, this past week, we had a suicide prevention seminar at our local Spirit Lake Casino on a reservation, and it was fantastic, because I thought, it's hard for students to engage, on the day-to-day with regular instruction, regular core studies, electives, everything, name it. They have a complete problem just functioning in society, depending on the severity of the case. But we had this seminar, and I know I'm getting a little off track, but I have to share it. We went, and we had a comedian that was actually the host of the entire thing that they hired. And then they had a group of people that could rap and do hip hop, and got involved with the crowd and related all their stories. A girl that was raped, probably 50 times in her life, that overcame it and forgave the people. But it's just good information for these students, a good format to use, to get them to understand too, and that people are here for you and can help you and stuff. Some of the historical things, did it back to, World War I, World War II era, where, parents, there's some things that kids can inherit on the less severe sides of it. Like myself, I inherited anxiety and depression and stuff, and then some of that is more highlighted with myself because of the childhood and the upbringing that I had. But it took me a lot of years till I was probably in my mid-20s to actually completely and utterly get over it for the most part. As an adult, at 32, there's still some trigger factors, but you manage well. You have to, or you'll get eaten alive. But a little more on the historical perspective would be, this is one that I found too, that I found very interesting, which has been on ScienceDirect.com. I kind of got like a little sheet going here, so I'm just kind of going through it, getting the more important stuff, so I'm not dragging this on. But here's just something that I thought was interesting. During the 1970s, a paradigm shift occurred in a way that psychological trauma was conceived and managed until the Vietnam War. Those who broke down following a stressful event were considered inherently vulnerable, subject to neurosis laid down in children. So it ends up being an inherited thing, just like, Native American students or kids or people. There's a lot of people in society that stereotype or say certain things about that, but when you have so much trauma that's caused, you consider the Trail of Tears and the slaughters, and this is just one race alone. There's multiple cases in multiple races. I'm not just, sticking to one, but it's what I'm most familiar with because I'm Native American, as well as I teach at a Native American school, so it's what I'm more knowledgeable at. But a lot of these things can happen over time. You can cause PTSD through, time inheriting through student or through genetics and stuff like that, through your parents, grandparents and stuff. It's a proven statistic, So it's just it's hard on that kind of stuff. And then how does it specifically affect school age children? Well, it all depends on the age of the kid. I mean, some students I know that at a young age they have an issue with a lot of things, listening to student or teachers, excuse me. Did I mention I have 7 kids and I have a very busy life, so my mind gets a little scrambly. It also, see, I'm already scrambling. It affects them where I got students, that are even 8, 7 years old, even kindergarten, that are biting teachers and acting in a disruptive way, but it's not the children's fault. There's some that are born on withdrawal. There's some that are born on, just with some psychological defects, as well as just seeing traumatic things happening within their life and their own home, and they don't feel safe in their home. They may not be homeless, but they don't feel safe. So there's so many factors that you can see in these kids, when their behavior, your academics. They got students that are failing academically because of things that are happening at home, or with an uncle or outside of the school, bullying, anything that you can name is happening to students these days. So it's very important to educators to really get a grasp on it and be able to get to know the kid and to engage with them to the fullest, and to be able to just understand where they come from and get a little bit of background on them. You just me personally, just go in a little by little, and then one day the kid will just blurt it out. It's happened to me in the last 3 years. I couldn't tell you how many times. So many. I can count on both hands twice. Extracurriculars, there's so many students that aren't going to go out for stuff because their inability to be able to react with other people, to be able to take on an audience and stuff. So a lot of these things that happen will cause such anxiety that it affects them in so many different ways. It's so much information to cover, and I have so much literature that I can share if we can, extend another, slide on this even. But other than that, I mean, I guess I don't know what to say about it other than it's our job as educators to do our best job to make sure these kids feel safe and secure in an environment, because sometimes we're the only ones that give them food. Sometimes we're the only ones that, show that we care and that give them the attention that they deserve and give them the resources that they need to overcome these things. So that's kind of my take on it. My cited work, like I said, is childmindinstitute.org, sciencedirect.com. Also used Effective Health, ahrq.gov/topics, trauma and children interventions. And then there's so much literature on this stuff, dealing with even kids with PTSD and stuff that because of the psychological, emotional, and hurtful factors that they go through on a day-to-day. So that's my take on it, and I hope it's good. Thanks.